Today is Thursday, April 5th, 2018, and welcome to the Auburn Board of Health meeting. And we'd like to do a call to order and review the agenda. Is there anything that you'd like to add or remove?
Sure, thank you very much. We will hold the minutes for the next meeting.
Okay.
And we'll just provide updates. I don't think there's any other changes.
Okay. Thank you. We are going to continue a hearing that was opened on March 26, 2018. And this was a nuisance dog hearing on 14 Preston Ave. And again, that was opened on March 26, 2018. Swear in at this point? Yes. Okay. So I believe at this point, to just move things along, would actually like to do a swearing in of the town officials first to begin with. So in administering the oath, each witness is asked to raise their right hand and I'll ask you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. And you can do the witness now. Okay.
If anybody is going to...
Okay, if anyone is going to act as a witness, we're just going to do the swearing in to kind of move things along a little quicker. So if the owners, are you going to be offering testimony? So if you could raise your right hand, we'll actually ask you to swear in as well.
Anyone else?
And anybody else offering witness as well? Raise your right hand. So at this point, we ask you to solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay. So the purpose of the hearing is for the board to hear evidence concerning the two Rottweiler dogs from 14 Preston Ave, and we'll make a determination as to what action, if anything, for the nuisance dogs regarding these dogs involved. The procedure for the hearing is that we'll hear from representatives of the town that have been involved in investigating the matter. We'll also hear from residents of the town and any witnesses involved. The board will then give the owner a chance to speak if you choose. We'll then continue or close the hearing and make a decision as what should be done in the case and issue an order accordingly. Okay.
And at this time,
we'd like to hear some witnesses from the town, please.
Thank you. For anybody in the audience, my name is Amy Contois. I'm the animal control officer in town. So we're here today after we, Animal Control and the Board of Health, received a petition from some residents in the Preston Ave neighborhood. It seems like the areas are Preston Ave, Elmwood Street, and Field Street, where we've had people sign the petition. The petition was regarding the two Rottweiler dogs owned at 14 Preston Ave, owned by Robert Davis. The dogs in question, they're identified as Barnabas and Ian. They're both intact male Rottweilers. Both are currently licensed in the town and up to date on their rabies vaccines. And I do have a copy of my overview summary. I believe you both have that. Mm-hmm. So as cited on the petition that was submitted on February 27th of 2018, the petitioners listed 3 concerns and reasons for their submission of the petition. And I'll just read exactly what the petition says. So number 1, they are not treated as family dogs. They are treated as guard dogs. They are left out in the heat of the summer and the cold of the winter some nights after 10 p.m. They are tied to the front and the back doors for protection. They do not get to enjoy running or playing like a normal dog does. What kind of life is that for a dog? Number 2, the mailman was bitten a few months back by one of the dogs. Since the incident, I was only receiving mail once or twice a week, and again, this is from a resident in the neighborhood. I have since contacted the postmaster and was informed I will no longer receive any mail at my residence due to the mailman being bitten, and that he fears for his life in our neighborhood. And 3 was, many people have told me they're afraid to walk by the house in question. I myself am very cautious when I walk my own dog or leave my house to go in my car. I fear they will get loose, which they have, and have frightened one of the neighbors. When she opened the garage door, the dog was there and lunged and barked at her, all whilst she had an infant in the car. They are left loose on the front front porch where they stand on furniture, and I am waiting for one of them to leap off and really hurt someone. So again, that was the petition that was submitted by the residents in the neighborhood. And I believe you have a copy of the petition in front of you as well with the signatures on it. So to give you a history of our history at the property, animal control and other departments and agencies have received and investigated several complaints at the property. So July 18th, 2017, we received a complaint for excessive barking and a complaint of rats in the area. We did investigate the complaint at that time. We didn't find any information to support excessive barking and nothing to support that rats in the area were caused from anything regarding the property. September 9th of 2017, another excessive barking complaint. This complaint didn't cite any specific day, but the complaint was looking for information regarding our bylaws for excessive barking. So information and advisement was provided to the complainant. On October 25th, 2017, there was a dog bite incident at the property. I did personally investigate the incident. At that time, the owners were cited for having unlicensed dogs and were given a written notification because of the complaints we had received for excessive barking in the past. One of the dogs, Ian, was quarantined and released from that quarantine. And that bite incident was the incident that was referenced in the petition. It was a bite to a mail carrier that happened on the property while the dogs were actually on the porch. So the dogs did not leave the porch when the bite happened. Unfortunately, at that time, one of the owners was present and the mailbox was attached to the side of the porch. So when the mail carrier went to put the mail in, the dog reached over the porch, but it stayed on its own property.
Excuse me.
Excuse me, sir.
The mail-
You have to allow the animal control officer to present the facts, and there will be a time for you to speak.
Very good.
So again, at that time, the bite incident was investigated, and Ian was quarantined and released from the quarantine in accordance with standard protocol. On December 12th, 2017, excessive barking was reported on the weekends, and the assistant animal control officers who cover weekend coverage were advised to monitor the area for any barking excessive in that area. And again, excessive barking is any barking for 15 minutes or longer consistently at a time. So if there's a little bit of barking and it stops and then picks up again a couple minutes later, the way the bylaw is written, that's not considered excessive. On December 28th, we received a report that the dogs were outside, tied outside in the cold. I did investigate that, and when I went to the property, the dogs were not outside. January 29th of 2018, the MSPCA received a complaint regarding the dogs and concerns that people had. The MSPCA did investigate, and there were no findings, so they didn't see any cause for concern at that time. On February 23rd, 2018, we received a complaint that mail service had stopped at number 13 Preston Ave due to the dogs residing at number 14. And on February 27th of 2018, there was an incident where one of the dogs got loose and a verbal warning was issued to the owner. And so while animal control has received several excessive barking complaints, the complaints have not actually been witnessed by an animal control officer at the town. And at the time, they've been considered unfounded. There has been one confirmed complaint and bylaw violation when the Rottweiler known as Ian got loose from the property at 14 Preston Ave and entered a neighbor's property on February 27th, 2018. And additionally, the owner, Robert Davis, does have 3 outstanding citations currently that were issued on February 22nd, 2018 for failure to license the 2 dogs and failure to rabies vaccinate 1 dog. Since the citations have been issued, the owner has come into compliance. Both dogs are licensed in the town. Both are up to date on their rabies vaccine. It's just at this time the citations remain unpaid. And that is something that I've spoken with the owner about. So for some additional information, on March 26, 2018, I spoke with the postmaster at the Auburn Post office regarding the issues with the 2 Rottweiler dogs at 14 Preston. The postmaster stated that mail service was discontinued for a brief amount of time at the end of February at number 13 and number 14 Preston Ave due to concerns with the 2 Rottweiler dogs. The postmaster stated that one of their mail carriers had been bitten in October by one of the Rottweiler dogs on the property, and that all of the mail carriers have been instructed to not deliver to number 13 or number 14 Preston Ave if the dogs were outside. To immediately remedy the situation, the mailbox at the property of number 14 that was originally attached to the left side of the front porch has been relocated to the end of the driveway. But even with the relocation of the mailbox, the postmaster still had concerns for the dogs being kept on the porch and tethered in the front yard. So he had also concerns with the effectiveness of the measures that the owner was currently using to contain the dogs on the property, and his concerns reflected protection for his mail carriers. So due to those concerns, the mail carriers have been instructed to not deliver mail to 13 or 14 if either or both of the dogs were outside. So even if they were on the porch or connected to a tether, they didn't want one of their postmasters actually delivering to either of those properties. When I spoke to the postmaster, he was not aware of any current holds on mail service to number 13, but he did state that he could not say that their mail might not potentially be affected in the future. So if the dogs were outside when they went to deliver mail, it could affect number 13 again. The postmaster stated that if the dogs were kept in a locked and fenced-in portion of the yard, then he would not anticipate any further stops and services. But the postmaster felt that the fence would have to be high enough so that the dogs were not able to jump over the fence. And then I do just have some pictures to share with you as well. So this first picture is actually from October when I did my bite investigation for the bite to the mail carrier. And this is a picture from the same day. So that shows the dogs, how they were contained on the front porch. But so you are aware, we don't have any bylaws saying an owner cannot keep a dog on their porch or loose on their property. The dog has to be kept on its own physical property. Once it leaves their property is when it would be a violation of a leash law. And in that picture, you can see where the mailbox was previously attached to the front porch, and that's where the bite incident happened in October while the dogs were on the porch. And again, the dogs didn't physically leave the porch when it happened. And then this is a more recent picture from March to show the relocation of the mailbox to the front curb.
So at this point, is there anybody else? Any other? Okay. I'd like to invite testimony from the owner at this point.
I thought we were going to hear from the
Okay.
witnesses and then I would have a chance to.
We can do that, sure.
Pretty much everything that Amy said.
Excuse me, just one moment.
Sure.
You have to state your
Okay.
name and
Okay,
address.
thank you. Thank you
All
for
right.
reminding me. Thank you. Could you please state your name and address? for the
Kathy
record?
Sivert, 13 Preston Ave.
Thank you.
Pretty much everything that Amy said was the truth, that we weren't getting our mail. My son was waiting for some packages to be delivered, and he kept getting notices saying something with the dogs across the street that they wouldn't deliver the packages. That's when he went to the post office and found out that they were holding our mail there, and we weren't going to get our mail while the dogs were out. I am nervous when I take my dog out, when the dogs were loose on the porch. I was nervous. They're standing up on furniture. I mean, they haven't been lately, but I'm nervous that they're going to jump off. We've had people that have come to visit the house that are nervous coming in and out of their car due to the dogs being up on the furniture on the porch. So
Hi, Victor Bowen, 25 Elmwood Street. My concern is the fact that these dogs really, I mean, he's got one of them that's on a cable that runs from the tree to, I guess, the house, and just watching him, if someone is outside, how it runs and leaps. And I don't think it's leaping like it wants to lick you. It's very aggressive. They both are. I mean, if he wants to keep the dogs, he should put up an 8-foot fence, because he has no fenced-in area. So it's easy for one of them or both of them to get loose. So that's my take. I mean, I go out to do yard work, and I have to always be aware of, are they outside? You know, where are they? If they're outside, I have to keep looking around, because you never know if they could get loose. And again, if they get loose, I've been chased twice by dogs. It's not fun. So I'm always leery about that. And I've seen one get loose, and it was in the wooded area behind our house. Luckily, no one else was out, because I'm sure he would have attacked that person.
Jeremy Harris, 21 Elmwood Street. My house abuts his yard. Whenever I go out to my yard and if the dog's on the run, the dog can be up at the house, and if I come out, he's running down and doing the lunge thing, barking. I have an 8-year-old son. He doesn't even want to go out and play if the dogs are out, because if he goes out, they just start barking. And it's not like a pretty bark, you know. They're not vicious dogs, I want to say, but the bark's pretty intimidating to a little 8-year-old. Anytime I'm out doing yard work, if they're out, they're pretty much barking. And that's pretty much it.
Bob Sidbert, 13 Preston Ave. Personally, I have witnessed, as this gentleman said, if I can just park my car in the driveway when I come home from work and walk up my front stairs. I don't know which one is which, but the one that's on the runner, I've seen many times this dog, as he said, lunge. This dog barks and lunges so hard against to try to break off or come towards someone or something that it chokes itself and it flies backwards, and it runs again and it chokes itself and it flies backwards. I could film this if you'd like, and I could show you this. I didn't think it was necessary, but something needs to be done proactively, before someone else gets injured. I've already gone to the police department to try to see if there's something proactive that can be done. Their hands are tied. They need to react. They can't stop something before, they can't stop supposedly a crime before it happens. They need to react. They can't be proactive. But I did want to make it known that we're in fear of what can happen in the event that these dogs get loose. I've seen this thing. If I choose to sit on my front lawn with my dog, legally on my own property, those dogs will bark incessantly and constantly for more than 15 minutes. I'm not going to do that at this point. But if that's an option, so that I can prove that they bark, however you put it, illegally or nuisance barking, they will, just with someone's presence. If someone walks by, they bark. If you go on your own property, they bark. As soon as their supposed threat goes away, they might stop for a while, but they bark on and off all day long, anytime that they're out. So it is nuisance. It may not be legally a nuisance because it's not 15 minutes uninterrupted, but if I play cornhole in my front yard or my side yard and there's any activity, those dogs will bark nonstop. At least, for sure, the one that's on the runner. He wants it. He wants to get off, and he will run, and he will choke himself on the end of his runner and spring back and just charge again, nonstop. He just continues to do it. How many times before that breaks again and he attacks someone? There's 2 little children that live right on the opposite corner of Newton Street. His house is here, my house is here, they're right here. They play in their yard every day. Big wheels, little things, running around. They're small children. Those dogs get off and they go after those children. What's going to happen? Who do you only hold this man responsible, but we're bringing it up to the attention. And if he can't be responsible for his animals, is the town going to be responsible for not stopping this before someone really gets hurt? So it started with the mail for me. I don't think it's my fault that my mail's not getting delivered. So now I have to go pick up my mail. My son was waiting for packages. We didn't even know that it wasn't happening. Mail is sporadic. You might not get a letter every day. So we didn't really think much of it. And then all of a sudden we started getting bundles with elastics around them, and then my son's packages didn't show up. And when he investigated, that's the only time he was told. So that is really, that was the main thing that started us putting this petition out, because of the inconvenience
We're being
through no
punished for
fault.
not getting
Yeah,
our
we're
mail.
being punished for his dogs.
Right.
And that's, just doesn't sit well. Doesn't sit well at all. So we have zero relationship with the owner of the dogs. It's not something we can personally discuss. We'd rather keep it that way. He can have his life and stay on his side, and we'll have our life and stay on our side. But when his side affects my side, now we have an issue that can't be dealt with civilly. So that's where we stand.
Thank you.
How do you do? I'm Robert Davis. I'm the owner of the dogs. I'd like to begin by apologizing to everybody who the dogs have affected. Nobody should be in fear of their lives. Nobody should be kept from enjoying their property because of aggressive dogs. I'll be the first one to admit that my dogs are aggressive. They're a little over a year old, puppies at this point, until about 2 years old. They're brothers. One of the things that happens when you take on two dogs, two males from the same litter, is they have a hard time bonding with the people who take them in. They bond with each other. They play rough, and they're very difficult to train because they don't want to listen, and they don't bond to the person as most single dogs would. They require a lot of time and effort, and I have spent a lot of time and effort, especially lately. As far as the mail goes, I found out about the mail not being delivered the same way they did. It wasn't delivered. I had to go down to the post office and ask what's going on. They explained to me that the mail carrier was afraid to deliver the mail. Just for clarification, when the mail carrier got bitten, he came up to the house and handed the mail over the railing. My wife was standing on the porch. Those dogs are trained to protect my wife. Any man that reaches for my wife across that railing is going to get bit. Okay? And I have no qualms about my dogs biting them, because that's what the dogs are there for. I got these dogs because we had a rash of break-ins in the neighborhood. They came in my yard. They stole a 25 horsepower outboard motor off the boat parked in my yard. There were other incidences of break-ins in the neighborhood. I'm sure you're well aware of it. And I have a right to protect my property. I did speak to the dog officer about this, the animal control officer. I want to do whatever I can to make this right with everybody in the neighborhood. I've been working on them not barking. I've been working on them not being as aggressive. Training aggressiveness out of a dog is not the easiest thing in the world to do, because by nature, Rottweilers are aggressive. My plans include putting chain link runs up in the backyard with a dog house inside the run so that the dogs can get their exercise. I want to put slats in because I know that people walking by, they're very territorial dogs, and people walking by the house, they act aggressively towards. That's part of the reason I have the dogs, to keep undesirable people off my property. I have over $100,000 in equipment in an outbuilding in my backyard. I don't want it getting broken into. We've had incidents of people breaking into the houses with people in the houses. Okay? I don't want to end up shooting somebody trying to break into my house. That's why I have dogs. I was told that, you know, the main reason that we're having this hearing is because of the mail not being delivered. I've taken all the steps that I can. I've acted within the town bylaws, within the state laws regarding, you know, the nuisance barking, and as far as the dog biting somebody, that would be expected if anybody reached over that railing at my house. I'm going to leave it up to you people what you decide you'd like me to do about this. My suggestion is I'm going to move forward and build the chain link runs for them. I'm going to continue to try to train them not to bark and be as aggressive as necessary. And when I put up the runs, I plan on putting slats, the slats that reduce your visibility so that the dogs don't see people walking by. I especially don't want an 8-year-old child afraid to go into his backyard. Okay, no kid should be afraid to go out. Like I said, I apologize wholeheartedly. I'm going to do what I can to take care of this. And if that's not enough, well, that's all I can offer. Thank you for your time.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by a run?
Yeah, it'll be 30 feet long and 6 feet wide with 8 to 10 foot high chain link fence enclosed on 3 sides with a gated end. There'll be a crushed stone floor, and at the very back, at the very far end inside, will be a doghouse enclosure so that they are able to get out of the elements. It will be sized so that their body heat will keep them warm in the winter, and there will be a cover and a small deck so that they can lay outside in the summer and have shade. It's going to be half in the shade, half in the sunlight, so they can get both. I plan on making sure that the dogs, you know, I've been trying to be very aware of the dogs barking. Part of the reason I moved to Auburn was so that I had my own home and I could enjoy the quiet enjoyment of my own home. And I've had other dogs, as we all know, dogs barking can be annoying. And I'm going to do what I can to reduce that. Like I said, the dogs are still very young. They still have a lot of work. There's a lot of work for me to do with them. And it's not a typical situation where you have just one dog. I took the 2 dogs because and I kind of got sucked in here. When I went to purchase the one dog, there was one dog left, and they threatened to put that puppy down. If they couldn't find a home for it, they offered me the dog at a very reduced rate because he was the runt, and that's Ian. I'm an animal lover. I didn't want anything to happen to the puppy. I took him. And unfortunately, I didn't know at the time how difficult it was going to be to raise 2 males from the same litter. And everything I've read, it is advised not to do that.
And what was your time frame, your timeline for this run?
Within 3 months,
So
90 days,
June, so
by the end of June. It's an expensive undertaking, and I'm going to be doing the work myself.
And Amy, what are the rules, the bylaws about tethering and tying dogs? There was...
So the regulations for tethering, also, they actually come from the state level.
Okay.
So the main points for the tethering are a dog can't be tethered outside for longer than 5 hours at a time. It can't be tethered outside during extreme weather, so during a weather advisory. And it can't be tethered outside during late evening hours for longer than 15 minutes at a time, or like a bathroom break. But the tethering does apply to a physical tether, so a dog run and not a fenced-in area. fenced-in areas have different regulations.
So hearing what he's looking at doing, how would that differ as far as the tethering versus the fenced-in dog run?
So with dog kennels and dogs that are housed outside, they have to have at least a 10 by 10 foot area. They do need to have appropriate shelter to protect them from the elements, from wind, rain, sun. They have to have constant access to water and be fed regularly.
I feel that the solution, by fencing the dogs in, it would put people more, this has been a suggestion that if I put the dogs behind a fenced-in area, it was brought up by one of the people here tonight, it was brought up by the postmaster, it was brought up by Amy here, as a suggestion for the solution to the problem. I agree that, you know, that would be a solution. I'm a licensed builder and a licensed master electrician. I'm quite capable of building a pen that they can't get out of. I think that by putting up the visibility, the slats that reduce their ability to see people walking around outside will reduce the amount of barking and the aggressiveness. They are being territorial and protective of the property, as I would expect them to be. They are not being raised as guard dogs by any means. They are house pets. We don't leave them out for any extended period of time. On exceptionally cold days, we set a timer so that the dogs aren't out any longer than 20 minutes. Vet bills are very expensive. I don't want anything happening to these dogs. They're very expensive, and I love them dearly. I'm doing the best I can with them. I really didn't, at the time I took the 2 dogs on, I wasn't aware of the problems that I would run into raising them and training them. I have had dogs my whole life. I've been involved with breeding Rottweilers and training them professionally, and I've never, until now, tried to train 2 dogs at one time, and it is exceptionally difficult. What I'm trying to do here is put people at ease about the dog's aggressiveness and their fears of the dogs getting loose. The dogs have gotten loose twice. I have no qualms about letting you know up front about what's going on. They're puppies, they run around, they want to play with the dog next door. They haven't attacked anybody off the leash. They once on the leash, or once on a leash or on a tether, they become protective and act much more aggressively. But when they're off running around, they're just like any other dog. They're playful puppies.
Through the board, if I could just offer a suggestion. Both dogs, Barnabas and Ian, are currently intact.
Yes.
And where you do have 2 males from the same litter, I would suggest looking into
I
neutering
plan on
them.
breeding them. That'd make it very difficult.
Okay. Well, with some of the issues that you're describing, the reactiveness on leashes and leads,
And from my-
the aggression, neutering them will greatly decrease that. But
I believe wholeheartedly in what you're saying. If you get them and you neuter them in the first year, when they're younger. Once they get past a year old, it's not as effective.
it still offers some help to the issues that you're having. They're both barely a year old at this point, and would greatly help the issues that you're having and possibly some of the issues that the people in the neighborhood are experiencing too, especially
Like I
if you're
said, I
having a
plan on-
difficult time
Like I said, I
with the
plan on breeding the
dogs.
dogs after they've bred. If the aggressiveness is still an issue, and then I will look at that. That's a last resort. I don't believe in.
Sir, I had a question for you. Earlier, when you were first speaking, you had mentioned that the dogs were trained to protect your wife and
Yes.
also guard your property from break-ins. And a few seconds ago, you had just said that they're not guard dogs. Can you
They're not-
elaborate
well,
on
okay.
what the difference?
The difference between a guard dog, in my opinion, a guard dog is somebody that you would call it, if you wanted to protect your property, all right, and keep people out of it, you'd call a company that would bring a guard dog. All right, guard dogs have one handler, all right, anybody else they'll bite. And they let the dogs go free on the property at night, and anybody that breaks in will get bitten. That's a guard dog. Okay? Canine dogs with police, all right? Police dogs and guard dogs are very different. All right? They're both working dogs, and both of them have a different job. One is to attack intruders indiscriminately. The other is trained to attack. My dogs are not trained to attack. All right? They're trained to protect. If you put your hands on my wife or reach for her, the dog will bite you. But if you walk up to the house, all right, you walk by the house, the dogs will bark at you, but they won't jump off the porch and go after you. A guard dog I expect any dog that lives in a home with a family to be protective. Other than the little fluffy dogs, what are they going to do? But any working class dog is going to protect his home.
You didn't have the dog, they're less than a year old, you didn't have them formally trained at all to protect your wife, no? Did you, when you said that they were trained to protect your wife, did you provide that training?
I provided
You
the
did,
training,
okay.
yes. The dogs will bite me if I reach and try to put my hands on my dog.
Even just pet them?
On my wife,
Oh, you okay.
not on the dogs. If I raised my hand to my wife, the dogs would attack me. I'm not there all day. I'm off at work. My wife is home alone. I want her to be protected.
Have you researched any other ways of maybe extra patrols by the police department or anything else?
I don't think that that's necessary. We live in a very nice neighborhood. Like I said, we had problems with break-ins, and that was break-ins at night. They broke into one of my neighbor's house while they were home. Okay, like anybody knows, the police can only respond to a crime in progress or that has already happened. They don't know when somebody's going to break in and be able to stop it ahead of time. That's why you have a dog.
And through the board, if I could just offer some clarification to what a nuisance dog is by definition. So it's actually a definition provided in the Mass General Law. So a nuisance dog is a dog that either, one, by excessive barking or other disturbance is a source of annoyance to a sick person residing in the vicinity, or two, by excessive barking causing damage or other interference, a reasonable person would find such behavior disruptive to one's peace and quiet and enjoyment, or three, has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal, or person, but such threat or attack was not grossly disproportionate under all of these circumstances. You just want to look at yourself as well.
And as far as the dog bite, the dog gave him one bite on the hand and backed off. He didn't leap over the railing and tear him up and send him to the hospital. He required no hospitalization and no stitches, no nothing. He was more upset for reaching over the railing at himself than anything else.
However, it sounds like, does the postmaster realize that you've moved the...
Yes, it was his
But-
direction.
But they
He's-
still don't want to come back?
Well, here's the thing that was explained to me by the postmaster. I went in and I asked, and I said, how can we resolve this problem? He says, what I'd like to see is you move your mailbox to the other side of the street. I said, I can't do that. It's not my property. what I can do is move it to the end of the driveway, on the other side of the driveway, where the mailman can, or the letter carrier can reach it from the truck. And he won't have to get out of the truck. And that's exactly, he said, well, that would be fine then. You do that and we'll resume mail delivery. I did that, and the mail carrier still didn't feel comfortable. Okay? Got to keep in mind, this isn't the only dog on the street. My neighbors across the street have a dog. And when I asked the letter carrier what happened that day, he told me he was looking over his shoulder at the dog across the street when he walked over to the house, went to reach across to hand her the mail, and the dog came up and bit him in the hand as he reached over the railing. So he's got some concerns about the dog across the street as well.
That's sort of hearsay because the mailman isn't here to...
And the dog is in the
I'd
house.
love to fill you up with
Yeah.
hearsay.
And
Yeah.
just one more thing, I'm all for the pen thing, but the crushed stone I have a problem with. That's sort of unsanitary because the dog's going to be urinating and other stuff in there, and you can't clean that. And where do you plan on putting this? Because this isn't something I want to like look at out my picture window. You know what I mean?
No, it's going to be in the side yard up where the two trucks are.
You said the floor was going to be crushed stone.
No, it's going to be crushed stone that can be cleaned.
Crushed stone can't be cleaned. It's powder.
Yeah, it makes it easier to scoop up the hoops.
If it was cement, you could just scoop it and
No,
clean
I
it.
could do that.
You know,
If it makes
I just don't want the
you
runoff
feel
from-
better,
I
I'll
just
put
don't want-
cement.
I'm downhill from you. I don't want
Yeah.
the runoff from that running into my
Listen,
yard.
I'll be happy
You know, I
to
mean-
work it out with you, all right? I have no problem with that.
It's not-
As
I
far
mean,
as
it's not up to me,
sanitation
it's
is
up to
concerned
them,
right now,
obviously.
the dogs are going in the yard, now you have to go out and clean it every day anyway.
That's fine. I mean, I have no problem with that, but the crushed stone, they're gonna be living in it. It's gonna be their pen, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's sort of,
Well, I don't plan on having the dogs out there all day long, okay? Just, the dogs aren't outside all that much now anyway, okay? We
that's
don't
only
leave them out
because of
5
what's
hours at a time.
transpiring, though.
I'm sorry?
That's only because of what's transpiring.
No,
That's why they're
no,
not out there that much.
They don't,
Other than that, your dogs have been out, they were out a lot, and you can't deny that.
okay, well, we don't leave them out 5 hours at a whack, is what I'm trying to say, okay? And I don't plan on leaving the dogs out for a long time, okay? I'm doing everything I can, all right? If it's not enough, well, we'll have a determination here, and we'll see what these people say.
Did you want to say something, Mr. Balan?
So here's my like, Victor Bowen, out 25 Elmwood Street. So my concern is, when he made the comment that they're guard dogs, and then he said they're house dogs, but then he trained them to be guard dogs to protect his wife. So what are they? And I understand your definition of what you think your definition of a guard dog is. Your dogs are guard dogs. They were guard dogs before. You know, when you got them, they were guard dogs when you trained them. And what's interesting is the fact that you said you're a professional dog trainer.
No, I said I worked in a professional capacity. I'm
Can
not
I-
saying that I'm a professional
Can I
dog
finish,
trainer.
please? So then you said you didn't know how difficult it would be to train 2 male dogs. So I'm confused. Either you're trained in how to you're trained in how to deal with the 2 dogs, or you weren't skilled at it. It's very confusing, because obviously they're not house dogs. Because if they were house dogs, I doubt they would have bit the mailman.
And just for some clarification through the board, we don't have any regulations in town or at the state level that says a resident can't own a guard dog.
Okay.
But again, the reasons that we're here are
Yeah.
for nuisance-related
Right.
concerns.
Thank you.
And if the residents in the neighborhood are expressing concerns based on barking and other issues, and the owner did mention that the dogs have gotten loose twice, I would just refer you back to the state definition of nuisance bylaw, where the excessive barking causing damage or other interference is disruptive to someone's quiet and peaceful enjoyment.
Do you have a recommendation at all, or?
Yes. Yeah.
And just for clarification, I
Yes,
know
thank you.
Amy has presented the facts for the actual hearing, and I know obviously we've done hearings before, but this was a petition that was received by the town. So the petition was brought forward by the people that signed the petition. It came to the Board of Health and Animal Control, which is why the hearing is before you. So the hearing is to determine if these dogs are deemed as nuisance. Again, you have before you, you can dismiss the complaint if you don't feel that this is something that you feel is valid, as these dogs are nuisance, or you can deem the dog a nuisance with any sort of conditions or action that you would like the owner to take. The animal control officer, I believe, can give a recommendation for you to consider, but it's obviously hearing the testimony from the people here and just identifying whether or not you feel that the petition before you for these dogs to be deemed a nuisance or not.
Could I just say one other thing, if possible? Going back, dealing strictly with the nuisance issue, again, we wouldn't be here if the dogs, because one of the main issues is the dogs on more than one occasion are out there at 6 a.m. in the morning, and again, if someone's running or doing anything, they're barking. And again, if they see that person for 10 minutes, they're barking for 10 minutes. If they see that person for half an hour, they're going to bark for half an hour at 6 o'clock in the morning. Same thing on the other side at night. Sometimes I don't, he works, he comes home, he puts the dog out 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. If anybody's out there, they're barking at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you.
And one more thing, is the people that are like the dog officer, I mean, are you just driving by or are you walking up the road?
So I've driven by the property. I have personally gone to the property and spoken with one of the homeowners there with the dogs on the porch. The dogs did bark at me for a couple of minutes while I was there. It wasn't consistent barking. They were moving between the different ends of the porch. Again, I don't live in the neighborhood, so I'm not experiencing what people that live in the neighborhood might.
Did the dog stop barking when the owner of the dog came out, or to quiet them, or?
So
Because I've seen these two walk these dogs and they can barely hold them back.
Yep. So the dogs, one dog, while I was at the property, was tethered on the porch. The other dog was loose on the porch. They did bark initially while I approached the home. One of the owners came outside and spoke to me from the porch. At that time, the dogs did stop barking. They did bark a few times while I was still on the property at other things passing by, but they did quiet while I was there speaking with her.
I also think there was a gentleman here at the last meeting that his dog was bit by his dog.
He was in a
He
butter.
lives to the next, he lives on Field Street.
He's not here. He sat right there 2 weeks ago. It's hearsay now because he's not here to provide his own information.
I did, through the board, speak to a resident from Field Street that was involved in the incident at the end of February 27th, when one of the dogs, known as Ian, had gotten loose from the property. He did describe an altercation between his German Shepherd and the Rottweiler Ian. He did state, though, that his dog, the German Shepherd, had not been bitten. There was no break to the skin on his dog.
And just through the board, obviously, we take any complaints very seriously, especially to what we're hearing obviously hear from the people in attendance at the meeting. So the animal control officer does check out all the complaints and does report back to me. We have discussions about whether or not there's further action needed. We consult the bylaw. So there are, if there is something that's happening in the neighborhood of cause of concern, obviously it has to be reported to us for us to investigate. And I'm confident that Amy has investigated every complaint that has come to us. But I realize that there may be things going on that we don't always hear about. So just, if there's questions about any of the timeline that you have there, I think Amy has been very detailed about what has happened, but all complaints that come to our office are investigated.
Did you have any recommendations as far as corrective action?
Yeah. So as the conditions for how the 2 Rottweilers are kept on the property of 14 Preston Ave, it's directly affecting the residents, primarily by stopping mail service occasionally with one of the butters across the street. It would be my recommendation that the 2 dogs are deemed nuisance dogs. Following order that the dogs identified as Barnabas and Ian, while outside, should be confined to a securely enclosed and locked dog pen or dog run area on the property with a fence not less than 6 feet high and an area not less than 10 by 10 feet per dog.
And through the board, if I may, Amy had also identified a suggestion that to help the owner with behavior that he's identifying with the dogs, and obviously I think other people are identifying. So these are 2 young male dogs that are not neutered. The animal control officer has offered a suggestion that neutering these dogs obviously would take down some of the aggression. And Mr. Davis started out by identifying that he felt his dogs were aggressive. So that, for me, you've identified that. You're recognizing it, and I certainly appreciate you being honest. But you're also identifying that you're planning on breeding these dogs. So if you're going to breed a dog that you feel is aggressive, obviously,
Well, please understand that
Were you all set? Are you done?
I just wanted to make a point that the animal control officer obviously is very well versed in animal behavior. She has many years of experience around animals of all types. I personally have seen Amy handle aggressive dogs. And I think a suggestion by her is something that obviously just should be noted. Certainly we want to help, provide a solution. While we can't require you to neuter your dogs, obviously we want to work with you to, try to understand the behavior that's happening. I hear from you that you're willing to try to train the dogs and to make them less aggressive, but I think it just should be noted, the recommendation that she had given to the owner in order to find a solution to this problem.
May I respond to that? I agree wholeheartedly. I want you to understand that aggressiveness is a desirable trait in these dogs, okay, for breeding purposes. I did, while I was explaining this, say that after they're at 2 years, between 2 and 3 years old is the prime breeding time for these dogs. After that, you're not going to really want to take them out. People aren't going to want to breed them. They want young, healthy. They want to see what the dogs are like at that age, because that's the age that they're going to go to work. when they get to be about 5, they're not working dogs as much. I wish I could elaborate more and verbalize it better, but what I did say that was that after they've been bred, that I would consider neutering them. I think Amy is very professional. She's helped identify some issues that needed to be that I needed to be made aware of. She had great suggestions on how to deal with the dogs. I'm here asking for input so that I can make these dogs better neighbors. Okay? I don't want my dogs to be nuisances. I'm going to do what I can to make them make their presence less obtrusive. But they're not going to be friendly dogs to the neighbors. They're not supposed to be friendly. They are to protect my home. They're to protect my wife.
Thank you.
Through the board.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify, because we do have people watching the meeting. Not all Rottweilers are aggressive. Not everybody wants an aggressive Rottweiler. Aggressiveness doesn't equate trainability in a dog. A dog can certainly be trained to perform a task. Like you mentioned, Mr. Davis, police dogs. You don't want an unpredictable dog that you can't control its behavior. You want a dog that has the intelligence and willingness to be able to be trained to perform a task safely. So if you are identifying that you're having a difficult time controlling the dogs or training them in a way that's manageable for you and for the neighborhood, I would possibly look beyond your desire to breed them, even to just get one litter from each dog. If you're having a hard time with that dog, you have to consider if those are genes that you want to actually pass on to another litter.
They're actually coming along very well now. So, you know, I agree wholeheartedly that it is a possible solution. At this time, it's not an avenue I would prefer to take. I'd like to exhaust training, you know, and attempting to train them because, like I said, I still need some time. You know, it's a process training these dogs. They don't train overnight. What I'm trying to do is to make them less of a nuisance to the neighborhood at this point. As far as their aggressiveness, that's a trait that these dogs have. And you're absolutely right about being predictable. And aggression is not necessarily an indicator of their willingness to be trained, but these dogs have shown me that they have a willingness to be trained.
Okay. Thank you.
Otherwise, I'd get rid of them.
I don't know how relevant it is to the nuisance situation. It may very well be. If there is breeding involved, are any of those dogs going to be kept on property, and then there's going to have to be some changes to pens and things like that. So I don't know if there can be any stipulations made, you know, to have very
Just
aggressive dogs be
To
bred and keep
clarify the
more of
breeding
them on the
issue,
property.
the dogs will, the
Through the
breeding
chair,
is
sir.
not, the breeding,
Not
as
at this
far as,
time,
it's
you
not
can't.
going to be, the dogs, if they are bred, they'll be bred for a stud fee, not for puppies, and
Yeah.
the puppies will not be brought back to the
Yeah.
house. I've
We
got
can't
my hands
entertain
full
that.
of it, too.
Yeah, we can't entertain it. Mrs. Seaver?
He also said that the
Yeah.
pen is going to be where the 2 broken down cars are in his yard. So does that mean it's going to be right across from my driveway at the street?
They'll be in my backyard.
Would
Right.
you like to make a motion to
Yes.
close the...
Make a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, considering that no one else has anything else to say. Seeing and hearing none, I make a motion to close.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we have a recommendation from the animal control officer. I did have a question prior to coming, as far as coming up with my recommendation for this tonight. Would it be possible to also get something, an acknowledgement form from the owner, acknowledging some of the statements this evening in regards to knowing his dogs are aggressive, understanding that, an acknowledgement that we talked about them being neutered, and he somewhat agreed. Is that a possibility as far as a recommendation as well?
If I may. I think if the board wanted to, obviously we can't force Mr. Davis to write that or sign anything like that.
Okay.
I think it's something that you can obviously identify whether or not you think the complaint should be dismissed, or the determination that the dogs are nuisances. You can make a determination, and you can also put conditions on that as to what you want as the board to protect. And you can also put strong suggestions.
Sure.
Because obviously the animal control officer, has made a suggestion. Whether or not the dog owner wants to entertain that, I guess at this time I'm not hearing that, but certainly, if the board wanted to make a strong suggestion on it, they could certainly do that.
Okay.
Just to add what Darlene mentioned, and this is a sworn testimony provided by the
Right.
owner. The owner was sworn in at the beginning of the
It's
hearing.
recorded as well,
And
so-
and it's
Recorded.
recorded.
Okay, that answered my question. Thank you. So, given that, I herefore then make the determination that Barnabas and E&B deemed nuisance dogs in the following order as written by the dog officer be enforced, be confined to a securely enclosed and locked pen or dog run area to the property with a fence of not less than 6 feet high in an area not less than 10 feet by 10 feet per dog.
And do you want to put that as a motion?
That's what I did.
Yes.
Did I not say
Yes.
that?
You just wanted to
Yes.
clarify?
Oh, yes, that is my motion, yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I would also like to discuss with a time frame. Can we talk about that a little bit? Are we able to put some kind of timeline about that?
Might be able to amend the
motion?
motion.
Can we amend the motion?
To put a
What-
time frame on it.
What would you have as an amendment for a timeline?
I know he talked about the end of June was where he was saying. I'd like to keep him to that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's,
I would like to put an amendment to that motion. I know you discussed it for the end of June, and I would like to, in respect to have you keep to that timeline.
I'd be happy to.
So just for clarification, so that we all understand leaving here, so the determination has been made that the dogs, Ian and Barnabas, are deemed a nuisance, and that the owner will have to put up a pen. The board is willing to obviously give some time for the homeowner to be able to, dog owner, to be able to put that pen up.
Yes.
And is that a timeline you want to identify with a date on it?
Yes.
In the meantime, obviously, the dog owner would have to take such steps in order to keep the dogs inside or on leash until such time that the pen is, put in place. Does that sound reasonable, Amy? Just so there's
Yes.
a level of protection from now until when the
Until when it's
dogs can be,
constructed.
can be put outside in an actual pen.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yes, that makes sense.
I'd like to make a
Just,
suggestion.
sir, just, you have to go through the chair.
Okay.
Are there any recommendations regarding stipulations for that? I noticed in the general law there is talk about leash in terms of like strength, et cetera, and the tethering, because I want to be sure that they're adhering to the tethering laws, sir, in terms of what Amy talked about, in terms of not more than 5 hours and restrictions related to late evenings, et cetera.
That's what, I wanted to make a suggestion. We have noise laws regarding construction, hours of operation that I'm aware of, that we can't start with power saws and hammers and between certain hours. I would like to try to keep the dogs in the house within those time period. What I'm trying to say is I'll only let the dogs out when it would be an acceptable time for noise to be made, like as a construction site or dogs barking. I won't let them out early in the morning. I won't let them out late at night. I'd like to set a date. I suggested 90 days. I would suggest a date from 90 days from today. I'll have the runs up, and I would like to keep Amy in the loop as far as design, placement, and I will take all of the necessary steps to ensure that the dogs don't get off any tethers, and I will have her ask her to come down and inspect the tethers that we put in that will ensure that the dogs can't get off the leashes, and I'll continue to work to keep the dogs quiet. They do bark, but they do calm down. They bark when when cars go by, when the garbage truck comes by, when they come home from work and walk in the house. Yes, we're working on it. I was out with them last weekend, and she had guests coming and going. I was out with the dogs trying to teach them not to bark at people, and they didn't. So the training is working.
So for sake of ease of, June 30th, it's not quite the 90 days, but just for sake of ease, that would be close to 90 days. You're in agreement with that?
Yeah, that was your amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing I need to ask, Amy, would you be willing to contribute to the design and check and to assure everybody's safety? I would like an impartial second party to come over, that somebody like yourself that understands how powerful these dogs are and their ability to get loose under certain circumstances, under any circumstances. And I would prefer to have you inspect whatever I have set out in the meantime until the pens are built to assure everybody's safe.
And that's something that I am willing to do to help you through the process. And through the board, I would just like to clarify
Yes.
that in a sense, the quiet hours that Mr. Davis is describing about not having the dogs out at certain times to eliminate some nuisance barking that some of the neighbors might be describing, that's not something that's addressed in our bylaws, so a stipulation like that has to come from an order from the board. Our bylaws on barking are for a time frame of 15 minutes or more, regardless of the time of day.
And just to Amy's point, also, I mean, these are animals. It's not, they don't turn off their body systems, to only go to relieve themselves outside at certain times. Obviously, I appreciate the suggestion Mr. Davis is putting forth, but if the animals have to go out early in the morning to urinate or defecate, I mean, obviously, I think we just have to have some common sense about,
Let
me just finish, just have some common sense about if the owner is taking the dogs out to do their business and bringing them back in, obviously they're not left out unattended and they can control the barking at that point. And the other item I would like to also address is Amy, I think definitely is willing to work with Mr. Davis towards working towards a solution for suggestions, but she by no means is to be held liable for trying to work with Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis is responsible for controlling his own dogs and putting up an enclosure as identified by the board in the MGLs to make sure that the enclosure is safe. So that also is something that I want to just identify.
I'm sorry.
And just one other thing that Amy had identified is Mr. Davis has licensed these dogs and has brought the dogs up to date on their rabies vaccination, so that we're, we're very good with that. However, I do believe Mr. Davis does have some outstanding citations. So I just, as a separate matter for that, we obviously, are looking to have the citations addressed as well.
Can I just ask a question? In the meantime, between the time frame of building the enclosures and tomorrow, the mail comes at a certain time of day. Is there a possibility that the dogs could be brought in at that time so that I could get my mail delivered? It's not an exact time, it's not an exact science, but it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 4 p.m., something like that. If they're not present, I get my mail. If they're present, I'm inconvenienced. So I don't know if that can be something that can be even addressed, but in the interim.
Yes.
May I comment on that?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
I wasn't aware that they were not getting their mail. When I went and spoke with the postmaster, I made it clear that I did not expect, I told the postmaster that I would try to keep the dogs inside, rather because I don't want the letter carrier doing his job in fear. That the time that he delivers is generally between 3:30 and say 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and late in the afternoon. It's been a little more erratic because of the weather, I believe, but I told him that I don't expect him to deliver mail to my house if my dogs are out. I'm not the only person there. My wife lets the dogs out as well, and I've tried to tell her to keep the dogs in so that they don't upset or frighten the letter carrier. I'm trying to keep them in at the time so that everybody gets their mail. I need my mail as well. I wasn't aware until this was brought up when I first spoke to Amy that the mail delivery wasn't being delivered to 13 Preston as well. So all I can say is that upon my speaking to the postmaster, I made it very clear that I didn't expect the letter carrier to deliver mail if the dogs were out, and I will do my level best to keep the dogs in so that he doesn't have to work in fear.
That would be good. That would be, I'm sure they would appreciate that if you could do that, keep the dogs in during that time.
So through the chair,
Yes.
just for, I know there's been some other comments. If everybody is done commenting,
Yes, sir.
and we've got all the feedback that everybody wants to identify, I think just to be clear,
Yes.
if you could just have a clear vote at this point, because I know
Yes.
we had an amendment.
Some amendments, yeah.
Can we make a determination,
Yes.
a vote for whether or not you feel the dogs are deemed a nuisance?
Yeah.
And then if there a separate vote for any conditions or,
So I'll restate my initial, my original
thank you. Yeah.
motion, that the dogs located at 14 Preston Ave, Barnabas and Ian, be deemed nuisance dogs, with the following order to be in place as recommended by the dog officer. Barnabas and Ian be confined to a securely enclosed and locked pen or dog run area on the property with a fence not less than 6 feet high in an area not less than 10 feet by 10 feet per dog, and that this enclosure be completed not less than 90 days from
By June 30th.
by June 30th. Sorry, my motion.
That, also about this letter carrier.
So do you want to second the motion?
I second that motion. In
Vote.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And no opposed?
No opposed.
That would cover us.
Yeah.
Any other action by the board? Okay. And
point, I make a motion to close the hearing.
Okay, motion to close the hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this closes the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. All right, so for the, just some quick updates here. We have animal control, actually, we have Amy here. Just to move on to, thank you.
Thanks.
The licensing, and we have a clinic that's coming up. So to give you some a little bit lighter news, I think she has a really nice flyer here.
So I believe we did, I did mention this at the last Board of Health hearing, but I just want to reiterate that we do have a low-cost vaccine and microchip clinic coming up on Saturday, May 5th. So our Cinco de Mayo clinic. It's going to be here at Town Hall at 10 a.m. until 12 noon. Just share another one of the flyers with you. So this clinic, it's not limited to Auburn residents, so anybody in the area that could benefit from the services is more than welcome to attend. It will be Second Chance Animal Services with their mobile unit that's going to be here in the parking lot. And it is $12 per vaccine, so $12 for distemper vaccine, $12 for rabies vaccine, and $20 for microchipping. And again, May 5th, 10 a.m. to 12 noon here in the parking lot at Town Hall.
Excellent.
Amy, can you also just give an update for everybody just on the dog licensing?
Sure.
You know, when people have to act on that?
So dog licenses, all 2017 dog licenses expired March 31st. So anybody at this point that has not renewed their license, their dog is considered unlicensed at this time. They will have until the end of the month, until the end of April, to license without any additional fees. As of May 1st, there is a $10 late fee that's imposed. At this point, we have about 60% of the dogs that were licensed last year licensed. So there's still quite a few that have not licensed yet at this point. I have sent out email reminders to anybody that has provided us an email address as part of their dog licensing record, and I do have notices that will be going out to owners with unlicensed dogs at this time. I'm hoping to get those out in a time frame that they're able to receive them and act on licensing before they have late fees imposed.
Excellent.
Thank you. So we also have an update for leaf pickup. Just earlier this week, we were able to confirm for the yard waste pickup dates. Just wanted to inform the board. So starting for 4 consecutive Saturdays, starting April 28th, May 5th, May 12th, and May 19th. We want people to who are on the municipal trash service to put out their leaf bags and brush by the curb at 7 a.m. and those will be picked up by Republic Services. We also have household hazardous waste day planning going on. We are confirming the date. We are looking to have this in summertime, so we will be advertising the date hopefully later this week. And then for textile and recycling educational information, I just wanted to give you a quick update. Eileen was able to attend a recycling and solid waste conference, 2 weeks ago? So can you just give us a couple of highlights, Eileen?
They had a lot of vendors set up expo display. A lot of the vendors that we currently use, that we work with on a regular basis to follow through with new recycling.
And one of the things that me and Darlene are working on is textile recycling. And the conference actually had a class about it and a lot of vendors on it. So we're starting to put together a program to promote textile recycling. They had a lot of vendors that are now doing displays to show the communities what their recycling goes to and what's made from it. And so that's an interesting twist on why people know why they should recycle, but they don't know what happens to it after. And there's a lot more information out there and more companies that are willing to show and display what happens. And we actually took that and used some of it at the Health and Business Expo that was held at the Elks for the Chamber of Commerce last week, and took the film bag to show all the different types of plastics that Trex decking uses to make Trex decking. So if you have dry cleaner bags or grocery bags or pellet bags, baggies you use primarily not for food, but if you're using baggies to store anything else. There are some bread bags, but coverings for all of the beverages, the water and all of the other beverages that are sold, that's collected at grocery stores locally, and Trex Decking comes and picks it up when it's full, and they actually mix it with wood chips and make it. Coca-Cola was another one that showed how all of the textiles, the rubber soles of the sneakers were taken apart, and now they're making actual clothing with it.
Wow.
So Nike and a couple of the sports places are making, when you see the shirts that have the webbing on it, that's all made from rubber soles of sneakers. So it's an interesting twist to try to educate the community on what the repurpose of could be for their recycling. So it was a great conference and gave us a lot of useful information that hopefully we can move forward with the residents.
Thank you. We have emergency preparedness. I wanted to just let the board know we do regularly attend emergency preparedness regional meetings. And currently the board had voted me as a voting member. Just in the absence that I can't make it for some reason, something comes up in the office, Eileen has attended these meetings. And I would just, I would like to request the board just have Eileen as a backup in my absence, if you are comfortable with that. You know, I would entertain if you would consider a vote to
Sure.
have her as an appointee in my absence to be a voting member.
Sure.
Yes.
I'd make a motion that Eileen be appointed in your absence for the emergency
Yes.
preparedness and also as a voting member.
Okay, for Region 2.
Yes.
Region 2, sorry.
Thank you. And,
I second that motion.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome, thank you. And just the flu vaccine, I wanted to let you know we did order vaccine. I believe we ordered 150 doses, so we'll have that for the next flu season. This is, typically we get the vaccine just around September into October, and we'll be able to do our clinics. And just one final thing, the town is committed to keeping employees safe and being safe in our workplaces. The town is doing an ALICE training in May. So just wanted to update you. In years past, they've also done it for board members as well. We all recognize what we do and in the world we live in. So the town is taking steps to make sure that we all are aware of our surroundings and how we can protect ourselves. That's, I believe, all I have. Eileen, anything?
Nope.
Amy? I don't think we have anything else, unless you have any questions for us.
Have we talked about the July? You could give them the date.
Oh, can you just give them the dates?
Yes, so
Yeah, that would be great.
the town manager has decided on a date for the 4th of July celebration, Independence Day celebration. It is going to be July 1st, which is a Sunday. So we already have vendors that are starting to get lined up. We do the food part of it the trash and recycle part of it and many other pieces, but the vendors are starting to get lined up and come in. We will have Jordan this year working on the event with me to kind of bring her into what temporary events are. It's our biggest food temporary event. I think last year I had about 19 food vendors. On a Sunday, might not be as many because it's a big cookout day and lots of people aren't coming like they're coming after work, but we still anticipate that we will have a great many food vendors. So it's starting early, they're coming in, it's a lot of work, but it's definitely one of our biggest temporary events that we have. So July 1st, I think the Midway opens at 5.
Yeah, 5, I believe. And just to put it in perspective for you, the event has grown over the past several years up at Pappas. I think last year we estimated about 8,000 to 10,000 people. So
Wow.
it's a
That's
big,
big.
Yeah, it is big.
it's a great event for the town. I think people realize how family friendly and it's just a really nice event. A lot of planning goes into it. We work with Rec and Culture on the food part of it, obviously having food and different, games and so forth just makes a little bit for everybody. So, just wanted to let you know it's a great event and we have we support it.
Yeah, they have a band that play. They have a parade that starts it. A band that plays during the lighter hours. A midway that has several rides and games for the children. And then, as it gets dark, everyone sets up for the actual big event, the fireworks.
That's all we have. The next meetings, I just put down a couple. I know that we may, in the past, we've handled this by having Paula send out an email. So if you're open to that, we can handle that the same way. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're actually, we're going into getting closer to the summer months, May, June, July. So we can send out some proposed dates and have the board respond if that works for you.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks like it should work too.
The second and the fourth, obviously, the second Monday in May would be May 14th. May 28th is actually the Memorial Day weekend, so obviously the town hall would be closed. But we'll propose a date in May, a date in June, and then we can kind of go from there and see what the need is,
Okay.
That's good.
if that works.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second motion? In favor? And that's
you.
all. Thank you and good night.
Good night.